This is Gemar Nedarim and Daf Yomi, another exciting day, a short parak that will be wrapping up B'siyata Dishmaya tonight. And we pick it up from the Mishnah on the bottom of Mem Zayin Amud Beis. Says the Mishnah, Hareini Alecha Chayrim. As we've learned many times, the word Chayrem referring to the lashon of hektish, that when a person says, I am Chayrim to you, that means I am hektish to you. That means you cannot get any benefit from me. What is the halacha of such a case? It says the Mishnah, again, the bottom of Mem Zayin Amud Beis, HaMoider Aser. The one who made the neder is forbidden to, I should say better, the person that the neder is made against, he is forbidden to derive benefit from the person who made the neder. I know that sounded very complicated. It's really not so complicated. Let's say this in English one more time. Again, if I say Arini Alecha Chayrim, that I am Chayrim to you, you cannot get benefit to me. Very simple. Continues the Mishnah. Hareat Olai Chayrim. But now if the wording changes and rather one says you are Chayrim to me, the reverse. Now the halacha is the reverse. Ha-noidar is aser, not the mudar, but the noidar, the one who made the neder, is aser by him saying, you are chayrim to me, so you are forbidden to, and I cannot get benefit from you. Hareini alecha va'at alai. If you said both ways, I am to you and you are to me, then of course, says the Mishnah, shnehem asurim, they are both aser. Now the Mishnah continues that there are certain entities at any time, two people, there's an Isra Hana, Ruvain to Shimon and Shimon to Ruvain. Aside from not getting benefit from Ruvain or from Shimon's property, etc., there are some public entities, some public items that they can yes and not get Hana. So says the Mishnah, Shtei Mutarim, B'davar Sha'alei Bavel. They're both mutter to get benefit from entities of Oilei Bavel, which the Mishnah in a moment is going to discuss and describe what exactly are we referring to by Oilei Bavel. But continues the Mishnah as we turn over to Mem Chesam and Aleph, that they're both Mutter and Oilei Bavel. And what are they forbidden in? Va'asurin, and they are forbidden B'davar Shalai Sa'ir, with entities of that city. Now what exactly does that mean? Says the Mishnah. Ve'zeu davar shalaisa oilei bavel. What's an entity of oilei bavel that they're both permitted in? Kon harabayis, azaris v'abar. Sheven sader, harabayis, the Temple Mount. The azaris, azar of the Beis Hamikdash. And the bar, the cisterns, the wells, in which they left, that were there for the public, to those who go to be oilei regel, have something to drink. Ve'zeu davar shalaisa ir. And what is the entity of that city? Kirgon, for example, Archava, the town square, Vamerchatz, and the bathhouse, Ubeis Ekenesis, and the shul, Va'ativa, and the bima, V'asfarim, and the Sfarim, V'asfarim, and the Sfarim. So those are entities of Bavel that you can yes get benefit from. Those are entities of Isa city of the ear that you cannot, that you cannot get benefit from. Now the Mishnah has a line over here which, almost seems random. And you're allowed to write over your portion to the Nasi. Now what exactly does that mean? They can write your portion to the Nasi. The Gemara will explain in a moment. Whereas if Yehuda says no, you can write over either to a Nasi or a Hedit. Now, what is this difference? What is the difference that you can write it over? And the Gemara is going to explain, it just helps to understand the Mishnah what this means. What's referring to over here, that if someone cannot get benefit from the other, we just said he can't go to the town bathhouse. So how does he get by that point? Is that the other person relinquishes his rights. Reuven can't get benefit from Shimon, and Shimon can't get benefit from Reuven. So not only can they not get benefit from each other, they can't go take a bath, and they can't go to the shul, and they can't go to all these public areas. So how can we rectify this? The way to rectify this is that Shimon and Reuven, both of them, are koisev chalkoi. They give away, they relinquish their rights to the bathhouse, to the shul. And how do they do that? Either by giving it to the Nasi, or Rav Yehuda says they give it to a Hedit. Explains the Gemara that ma bein Nasi la Hedit. Explains the Gemara what is the difference between the two. Shakois if l'nasi, if you write over to the nasi, yitzarech lizachois. You don't have to be zeichet to him. Lahed yitzarech lizachois. You have to be zeichet to him. Both of them need to be zeichet to them, acquire on their behalf. So why do we speak about a nasi? The only reason why we spoke about a nasi was because that was the common case that when one has to give away their share in a town function, in the bathhouse, etc., they would do it with the nasi. Rav Yudah Eimer concludes the Mishnah, Ein Anshi Galil, the Anshe Galil do never have to do this. If there's ever two people that live in Galil, that they have a neder anah one for the other, they do not have to write away their property to the nasi, etc. Why? Their forefathers already relinquished their rights on their behalf. So really two parts of the Mishnah. The first part of the Mishnah discussing who you are usher to, in the case of Chayrim, in the case of Hektish. And part B in the Mishnah is discussing the Isser to the Merchatz, to the Shul, in relation to the Heter, to the Harabayis, etc. So says the Gemara, Amai Mitzar. What is the reason for this din that we're discussing? We're discussing a din that you're forbidden to get benefit from the bathhouse, from these public areas. Why? So Amar Rav Sheshes explains, Rav Sheshes Achi Katani. This is, that's not what I should say. The Gemara, what I just said. My mitzvah, the Gemara is asking on this line. On this line, it says that you can write over your portion to the nasi. So ask the Gemara, what's going on over here? What's ulcer? So Amar Rav Sheshes Achi Katani. No, we have to understand this is what the Mishnah meant to say. Uma takanasan. And what is the way to fix it? What is the way that not that's usher? What's the way that's mutter to go to the bathhouse, etc.? And on that, now the Mishnah reads very nicely. And if you don't the Gemara just quotes now. And of course, as you see, these words are in parentheses, as this is just re-quoting the Mishnah. So all the Gemara just did was filled in the blanks and told us that what is this case of Kaisev Lenasi, what it's talking about. It's discussing a case that one wants to create a heter, that one wants to, yes, be allowed to go to the bathhouse, etc. Continues the Gemara, Rav Yudah Eimer, Ein Anshe Galil, Zrichel Lizchai, Shekvar Kasu Avestein Al Yedeim. The Anshe Galil don't need to do this. Says the Gemara, why? So Tanya, the Brisa fills in the missing details of Yudah Eimer, Anshe Galil, Kana Tarin, they were very combative. They used to get into fights a lot. And because of that, they would all the time make Nidrei Hana. They would forbid each other, one from the other. And because of that, Amdu Avoiseim, their forefathers got up, and they wrote away their portions, so no one anymore has any rights to the bathhouse, etc. Because no one has any rights, that's the reason why you don't actually have to give away the rights in the event that one makes a neder anah, because it already has been done and affected by their grandparents. We continue with the next Mishnah on the bottom of Mem Ches Amud Aleph. Says the Mishnah, again, this should hopefully sound familiar. It's a din that we've had numerous times. And of course, this is the original source. If someone makes a neder anah from his friend, and unfortunately the person, so Reuven makes a neder from Shimon. Shimon is starving. But Reuven can't give him food because Reuven says it's an Isra anah. So what do? Reuven goes and takes his steak sandwich, gives it to someone else. And then, and then that person gives over the fruit to him, so he has what to eat. Continues the Mishnah, Maisa, there was a story. Someone in the house of Churan She'aviv. This should sound familiar. The Gemara quoted this previously. Quoted this story, just said Maisa Beis Churan, didn't tell us all the details, but now we understand. She'aviv noider emanu anah. One's father got upset at him and he made a neder anah, I'm not going to get benefit from the son. Vayamasi has been and then that son was marrying off his son. And of course, he was paying for the wedding. So now the problem is the grandfather wants to show up for the wedding, but he can't because his son is paying for the wedding. And his son is a neder anah. What does the son do? The son goes over to his friend and says, the whole wedding is yours. It's not my wedding anymore, so it's yours. Why do you do this? He wanted his father to be able to come and partake into the chasana. And the only way to do that, seemingly, was to give it all away. Amar, he said, the person said, aha, what did you just give me? Gave me the chutzner. You gave me the whole feast. He chose the wrong person to give it away to. That person went and made the whole thing hektish. Amar lei, I give out. I gave you my own stuff. You should give it to hektish. Of course not. Amar loi. So the guy responded, Nasati loi eshalcha ella. So why did you give it to me? You gave me your stuff. Ella shetehei atav avicha eichlin v'sheisim maratzin zelazevi avoin talui b'roisha. Your sin, your avoin should be hung from your head. You're pulling shtick. What are you doing? Meaning, if you're telling me that I can't go and give this away to hektish, that means you never really gave it to me. Amru Chachamim, concludes the Mishnah. Kol matana she'eino she'mektisha te'muktesh. Any time you can't actually be maktish the entity, einoi matana, it's not a good matana. And the Mishnah seemingly is teaching that in this case, because the recipient was not able to be maktish the item, it was not a good matana, which Gemara will discuss. To point out one very important line, the Ran speaks out over here that this last line in the Mishnah should not be taken at face value. The Mishnah does not mean to say that if you're not able to be makdish something, it's not a matana. Why doesn't the Mishnah mean to say that? Because every matana al-manas lahachzir, explains the Ran, is such an entity. When one gives a matana on condition to take it back, the halacha is, as long as the guy has it, it's a good matana, but the guy cannot go and be makdish it, and yet it is a good hana. You're telling me if you can't be makdish it, it's not a good enough, but we see explicitly Gemara in Kedushin in the beginning that says such a scenario, Gemara in Lulav HaGazel, and the Gemara there says it's a good matana. You can be Yaitse the Lachem, it's your Lulav. You can marry off a woman with it, it's your entity. So we see that even though She'im Ektisha, it's not going to work, still it is, yes, a good matana. So the Mishnah can't be taken at face value, and all the Mishnah means, as we're going to see in the Gemara more clearly, that when one gives away something with strings attached, clearly implying it doesn't mean for it to be a real gift, that's when the Mishnah is teaching us that it's actually not going to be a good gift, and you won't be able to get hana from such a story. So begins the Gemara, Maisa Listar. Ask the Gemara, what's going on over here? This story seemingly is a question. You started off the Mishnah saying that if Reuven can't get benefit from Shimon, how does Reuven feed Shimon? Give someone else, give to Shimon, and then the Mishnah continues saying in case that doesn't work. So explains the Gemara a classical sense, insert these words into the Mishnah. Says the Gemara 6 lines on the bottom of Memchesam and Aleph, that if the end of the story shows that the person wasn't really willing to give it away, then it is forbidden. And how do I know that? Oh, Maisa, there was a story, and this story clearly never meant to give it away, and therefore that's the reason why it's not going to be a good matana. Amar Rava, says Rava, Lo Ishanu. So we're going to have multiple ways of learning the exact and precise din in the Mishnah. So we begin with Rava, that Rava says the din of the Mishnah is only true Ella da Amar lei vehencha lifa necha. Is only where the giver says to the person who's receiving the item, the case over here is giving away the whole wedding feast and the chatzir, it only works vehencha lifa necha Ella kedei sheyavay haba. The case is where he said they're only yours so that Abba could come. That's going to be a case that it's not going to work because you literally built into a Tanai. You made a stipulation that it's only for Abba. That's why it doesn't work. But rather, if he said to him, it's going to be yours, so that my father could come. But not that it's a Tanai built in. Then he's saying it's at your discretion. Therefore, it will yes work. So Rava minimizing the issue of the Mishnah. Lishna damar le metcho damar le. Lishna achrina, 3 lines to the bottom. Another way of learning the Mishnah. Amrin law. Lishna achrina amrin law. I'll tell you another way of learning. Don't say the reason of the Mishnah is that which he said. It is yours. But if you spoke out that it's yours, so that my father should come. No, don't say it. Even if you said, hey, even if you really mentioned that the fact is so the father could come, it's going to be forbidden. Because the Suda, the whole scenario shows itself that the only reason why he's giving it to him is so that his father could come. Says the Gemara, according to the second Lasha, and that is not going to work. And we turn over to Mem Chesam and Beis. Says the Gemara a story. There was a guy, there was a person who had a son, that was stealing from his father bundles of flax, and the father eventually has enough. And the father makes usher his property to his son and says, that's it! You're stealing too much, you cannot get any enough from my property. Amrulei. They said to the father, 1 second. And let's say this kid that's stealing, this kid that you just took out of your will, what will happen if he has a son? So you have a grandson that's a Talmud Chacham. What's the din? Did you mean to include that as well? Amr Lahain. So the father said, Likni Hadain. He should acquire half. We have a bar berei surmei rabbanan. If his son, if my grandson is Talmud Chacham likanye, then he should acquire the other half. So the father seemingly at some level acquiesces that he wants the son in order so that the grandson can have something. The son should acquire it. So what is the halacha in this case? So says the Gemara, 2 opinions. Amri Prampadisa Kani. In Babadis, they said, this is a case of bikoine, on condition, the son is acquiring to give it to the grandson, and say, so the people of Pambadisa said this does not work, you cannot give the grandson via the son. For Rav Nachman Amar Kani, it does yes work. How does Rav Nachman know? Says the Gemara, Da Sudra. To any case of a Kinyan Sudar, what's the case of Kinyan Sudar? You're sitting at the Chuppah, sitting at the Tanaim of a wedding, and how do you make the acquisition of the Ksuba? The Rav will take off his yarmulke or take a handkerchief and hand it to one party, which you give it to the next party. That handkerchief I take your handkerchief and I give it to the other guy. How does that affect the Kinyan? Because when I take your handkerchief, I'm kind of the handkerchief, and I give the handkerchief to the other person, and you're kind it, and then get everything else. What do we see? This is a case of Kani, noise. I'm acquiring the handkerchief to give the handkerchief to someone else, and it works. Says Rav Nachman, this case will work. So 2 opinions, Machlekes ben Badisa and Rav Nachman. Continues the Gemara about 15 lines at the bottom of Memchas Mabeis. The first one on line is Almanas. Omar Rav Ashi. Says Rav Ashi, 1 second. Rav Nachman, what was your whole raya? From a classical case of a Kinyan Sudar, from a classical case of a handkerchief that the person takes it on condition to be kaino with it. Maybe in the case of the Sodar, if the guy wanted to really take it, he could. Meaning, maybe in the case of the Sodar, let's say at that Tanaim, the Rav takes the handkerchief and gives it to the father to give it to the other father to make a kinyan on the Ksuba. Let's say the father would turn to the Rav and say, you know what, I love this handkerchief. I'm not giving it back to you. What would that halacha be? Maybe it would really be his. So the whole raya from the handkerchief or Kinyan Sudar is that it's a case of being koina minas lahaknos, give it over. But maybe that's not true. Because maybe the halacha is that he actually could keep the Sudar if he wants. And further, whereas in our case, of course, it would not be the scenario. And furthermore, Sudar koina minas lahaknos. Ukinei min hashta. The case of Sudar is also not the same. Because the case of Sudar is you're being kind of the Sudar. Amanas lahaknois, but there's a kinei min hashta. There's a kinyan acquiring right now. At this moment, the moment he takes the kerchief, he is acquiring something. Then he's giving it over, so that's why it works. Hala nichsi. Whereas regard to the case of this case, where his father was menader his son, and now we're trying to figure out from the grandson. The hadin, this case of the son, leimasai kani lechi, when lechi When does this kid make a kinyan? If his son, if the grandson becomes a Talmid Chacham, then he makes the kinyan. So therefore, but at that moment, the item is not by him anymore. The Suddha already went back. So a twofold problem on Rav Nachman. The Gemara tries to Rav Ashi has two issues with Rav Nachman saying that you could have a kinyan in such a case. Amar le Rava le Rav Nachman. Rava says to Rav Nachman, V'amanas beis chur and the kani amanas la'aknesu. 1 second. Our Mishnah says Rava. Case of our Mishnah was a case that he made a kinyan on a condition, give it over. V'loika kani. And the Mishnah's case seemingly does not work when he made the kinyan to give it over. So the father could come to the chasana. It doesn't work. So how are you telling me, Rav Nachman, that you could be kani amanas la'aknes? Answers the Gemara, Zimnin Amar Le Misham Disudasa Mochich Alav. Sometimes Rav Nachman answered, no. The reason the Mishnah didn't work is not fundamentally that any time you have a kinyan to give it over, it doesn't work. No, says Rav Nachman, really a kinyan to give it over will yes work. You know why? In the case of the Mishnah, it doesn't work because the Sudasai is Mechiach Alav. The story itself shows that he didn't really mean to give it over. That's one answer. And other times, Rav Nachman answered, Rav Eliezer, the reason why it doesn't work in the Mishnah is like Rav Eliezer, as we've seen many times, the Amar, Afilu Aser, Viter Aser, V'Moider Hana. You can't bring me a raya from Moider Hana, because Viter, even in a case, even items that you're generally Mavater on, generally, you're not makbid on, are still Aser by a Moider Hana. And we continue. Tanan, the Gemara tries one more time to ask him, Rav Nachman. What did the closing words of the Mishnah say? That you have a matana that you can't be makdish. It's not a good matana. So call, when the Mishnah said call matana, call asuye mai, lav asuye milsam. Deshadya bekipi, says the Gemara is the Mishnah that's seemingly coming to include the case of the stolen flax, the case of this kid that the father make a neder enough from him. The Mishnah seemingly is including that case. Lo, he says the Gemara, no raya lasuya lishta basa d'shmaita to the Rava, as we saw. There are two cases in Rava, and it's coming to. And there it comes down the confetti, and it's coming to exclude the latter way of Rava learning. We should do an absolutely incredible chazara b'siyata d'shmaya on the short parak of Hashutafin. And b'siyata d'shmaya, we welcome everyone to join, bring a friend, as we'll be starting the 6th parak of Nedarim and Mavushal the next year, b'siyata d'shmaya.